Just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man tend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts, and cultivating toward perfection the flowers and fruits of right, useful, and pure thoughts. By pursuing this process, a man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life.
Hey everybody, welcome to iThinketh. I'm John Miller, and for the next little while we're going to be talking about some of the wisdom in the classic book, As a Man Thinketh, written by James Allen just about 115 years ago. And the recent release of the documentary, As a Man Thinketh, we've got screenings going on all around the country, and just started here recently, actually. And so you can go to our website, www.thinkethmovie.com, to find a current list of screenings that are going on. And you can also actually read the book, As a Man Thinketh, right there. We got a link on our website. And we're going to be checking in here in just a little bit with Miss Sherry James, Reverend out in Southern California, good friend of mine. And before we get started, I want to share with you, this was in the latest edition of New Thought magazine. Just got it this past week, over the weekend actually. And they were nice enough to include a little excerpt about the movie. And so I wanted to read to you what it said. It says, not only can this DVD bring inspiration and a spiritual quickening to you, it is also a new movie that can be shown to groups who are pursuing paths of empowering spiritual living. It goes on to say, all leaders and followers of New Thought are encouraged to view John's latest movie, As a Man Thinketh, and then share it with as many people as you possibly can. So we appreciate that inclusion in the latest New Thought magazine. Appreciate all of the work that they do over there at the International New Thought Alliance. So without a further ado, I want to go ahead and check in with Miss Sherry James. And here shortly we're going to be getting into the book, As a Man Thinketh. And this particular copy that I'm reading from today is was actually given to me by Dr. Joe Vitale. He did a little blurb on this book, but it was a co-write. This guy, Adam Mortimer, he went back and sort of included the original James Allen As a Man Thinketh, and then kind of updated it with some quotes and some really cool stuff along the way. So you get to read the original book, but then he explains some different parts in today's terms and brings it up to date. It's really cool. So if you don't have your own copy of James Allen's As a Man Thinketh, this is a really good one to pick up. So I invite you to do that. But you can also read the book, As a Man Thinketh, from our website, thinkethmovie.com. And let's go ahead and check in with Reverend Sherry James. And this is a clip, a little bit of Sherry James here.
So James Allen's As a Man Thinketh is one of my favorite books because it really just encapsulates what it means to live a thoughtful life. And it is one of the principles that we teach at Understanding Principles is that thoughts have value and power. The value of them is that we have the ability to change them at any time. The power is that what we think actually creates our world. And that verse, Proverbs 23:7, it explains life. That you can always look at what's happening in your life as an indication of what is in your heart. Sometimes people may not know like what in their experience is actually creating their experience, but that verse, which is actually a spiritual law, it can be studied in the reverse. So you can look at what's happening in your life and know what's happening beneath the surface. And so you become a student of your own experience, and you look at your life as evidence of what it is that you're thinking.
All right, everybody, now we're on with Reverend Sherry James. Reverend Sherry, it's good to have you on here today.
It's good to be here, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we'll give everybody a little bit of background. Sherry and I have known each other for a few years and kind of been following each other's work and that sort of thing. And then over the summer, she and I were both at INTA's World Congress in Phoenix this summer. And I was telling her a little bit about the film and what I was doing, and she's like, As a Man Thinketh, that's one of my favorite books. And so
And so that got me thinking. I was like, oh, we gotta make this happen. So I had my camera equipment with me. I said, let's make this happen. So the last night I was there, like right before I had to be at the airport, I showed up at Reverend Sherry's hotel room there. She sent her little boy off to McDonald's, and we had a little interview there, right there in your hotel room.
Yes. No, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. When I saw the early screening copy of the film, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a movie. Like,
You're like, how did this happen?
How did this happen? I've been behind the camera for so long that the idea of being in front of the camera is like, what? So
yeah,
thank you. It was an honor.
Well, and you say that you have a background in film, and you're in the Los Angeles area. You're at.
Yes, I came out to Los Angeles for film. So I went to Penn undergrad, and I was a theater arts major with a focus in directing. And I came out to Los Angeles for the film school for the Peter Stark producing program, and worked for I graduated in 97 and worked probably until 2011, 2012. So about 15 years in the entertainment industry. And simultaneous to being out here, I got involved with Up Church as a member. And I just immediately took to the teaching. I mean, it was scintillating, and it was like, oh my God, you can go to church and not put your brain in the trunk. Like, what is that like? And so they had this teacher training program, and I just have a love of teaching. It's the thing that I would do if I were not being paid. And so I started becoming a part of their teaching corps, and then I feel like one thing led to another. And one day, Reverend Della asked me, she said, our two assistant ministers have moved on, and I really need someone to be my assistant minister. And I was like, sure, absolutely. Yeah. And then I called her the next day, and I was like, no, wait, what did I say?
Did I really say that?
What did I agree to?
Hold on.
And she, so, it was just one of those things where you just kind of grow into it. And what was weird was, so that was March 2009. And for the next 10 months or so, she didn't say anything about it. And so then there was a part of me that was like, did I imagine the conversation?
Yeah.
And I didn't tell anybody.
You're like,
I was kind of
I'm off the hook. I'm off the hook.
Right. And I'm thinking, well, maybe she changed her mind.
Right.
And then she did a Christmas party at her house in Bel Air. Mm-hmm. And I went to the party, and she called me into the office, and she called the two other. There was one person who was in a ministerial program ahead of me, and then one who was like my study buddy, friend, and teacher. Yeah. And she called the three of us in the office, and she basically showed us the program, because they had redesigned the program for the church for the next bulletin for the next year, and there was my name right there as assistant minister, and that's how everybody found out. And it was like. There's an element of Reverend Della that's a little bit gangster. I'm gonna just say it like that. And so, and that's how everybody found out. And so it wasn't like this big announcement. Right. It was more like she showed three people, and then the whisper started. Yeah. And then the next January 1, 2010, my name is in the program as assistant minister. I hadn't even started seminary yet. And so then it was all, oh man, I don't want to go to the politics. There were people that were already in the seminary program ahead of me who were, like, hey, how are you going to choose somebody that's not even in seminary? It was something else. And so then that went on forever, it seemed like. And so she would joke, like, I may never retire. And I'm like, well, what did you ask me to be your minister? And then February 2015, I literally feel like God did like this to my life. Like I was this way, and then God said, this way. So what had happened was that Reverend Della threw another party at her house, and I was late to the party. I was here locking up the church, and I got to her house, and everybody's saying, congratulations. I was like... So what happened? And apparently she had announced that she was turning over the reins to Reverend Sherry.
She could have at least told you so you'd be on time.
Right. No idea what was happening. So that happened. That was February 15, 2015. Mm-hmm. February 6th, 2015, Jordan came to live with me. So, and he was not even 15 months, he was 14 months. And so, I mean, you know what having a baby is like. And I didn't even get 9 months to prepare. This is just like, it's here. And so the first year, 2015, was just like, I was like a deer in headlights. Like, okay.
Everything was new. Like you said, everything was flipped.
Everything literally like this. And so everything just slowed, ground to a halt, because, with a child, you can't just pick up and leave the house. I mean, I didn't have a major nightlife, but to go from, something to nothing is like, what? And I need to get the benefit of being pregnant? Like, what the? So anyway.
I hear you. Now, how long have you been the senior minister over there at
Since February 2015.
Okay, so it's February 2015. Wow.
Yes, literally. So February 15th is when she basically retired.
Wow.
And so technically February 22nd was her last Sunday as senior minister, but she didn't preach and she wasn't there. So I always count March 1 as my start date.
Yeah.
But honestly, 15th is when it all went down.
Wow. Now you had told me whenever we met up in Scottsdale over the summer, you said this is one of my favorite books, As a Man Thinketh.
Yes.
When did you first read the book, As a Man Thinketh?
2006, 2007, somewhere in there. And the first thing is that I realized after I said that to you that I hadn't actually read As a Man Thinketh. I read As a Woman Thinketh.
Okay, all right.
I don't know the woman's name now, but there is a woman who took the essay and changed all the pronouns to she. Yeah. So that's actually what I read. It's the same book. But
it's the same book, but just the different pronouns.
Right, so every time, he'll say, a man's mind may be likened to a garden. A woman's mind may be likened. So I actually read the female version of As a Man Thinketh.
Well,
but either way, it's still awesome and it's still powerful. It's actually more powerful as a woman because all the pronouns are she. And when does that ever happen? Yeah. So I read the book around 2006, 2007, and I just fell in love with it. There was just this economy of words, no word wasted. I'm always interested in a writer's voice because I'm interested in finding my own voice. Yeah. And just, really reading like the way that he expresses himself. There was a sentence I read recently where he says, the laws of growth and adjustment everywhere obtain. And I was like, when does that occur to you in the first draft?
I know, right? It's like, I need a whole day to consider that one. Exactly.
Right. And so I just like that. I love reading different writers and hearing the way that they phrase what they're saying. Right. So that was the first thing. And the other thing that I loved was that, I don't remember the exact publication of the essay, but I think it's like,
the early 1902. Yeah.
So I love the idea that it was this perennial book. And the first book that I started working on, maybe the second. Well, look, I have many books that I have a backlog for production assembly. Only one book has gotten out of the invisible into the visible. But I have a backlog.
That's all right.
So one of the many books that's on the conveyor belt is. I actually mocked up. I actually built not a vision board, but like a vision chamber, curio cabinet kind of thing. And As a Man Thinketh is there. So I mocked up a cover of my book, but I also put a copy of As a Woman Thinketh in the curio cabinet, and because of what it represents is what I want my material to do. That I want it to be that kind of perennial seller that
would stay in
someone,
power.
Right, exactly. That someone in 2117 could read it and say, you know what, this is really powerful. I could really, really use this. And even though the book itself is 100 years old. So, I admire the book for so many reasons. And those are just a few of them.
Well, it's interesting. You say the book that you read was actually rephrased, the pronouns As a Woman Thinketh. Whenever we were putting the movie together, that was like an important thing to me. So, like what ended up happening, I wanted to find all these women of power, that we could interview and put in the movie to really get the point across. Hey, it's not just what a man thinketh. It's what any individual thinketh. We ended up having more females in the movie than we did males. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and kind of dig into into the book a little bit. And so we're on the second, we're going to call it chapter, but it's really section because they're so short. The whole book is really short. But it's the effect of thought on circumstances.
I think it's ultimately an essay.
Yeah. But it's effect of thought on circumstances. He says, man's mind may be likened to a garden, that which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then abundance of useless weed seeds will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind. So he's basically saying that, we're always casting these seeds. And and you made a very important point in the movie, I think, when you're talking about, you can, within this teaching, you can look at your life and you can see the kind of seeds that you've been casting.
Absolutely. So one of the things that science reveals, and one of the things I love about New Thought, is that it is embracing of all science. So there is no disagreement between faith and science. One of the things that neuroscience has revealed to us to date is that the average person thinks between 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts in a day. There is no, what's the word I want to say? There is no, the mind is going to think. It is not a matter of if you're going to think. The mind is going to think. Right. And so it really is a question then of what you're going to think. And when you consider a day, and you, at the top of the day, you start with 40 to 60,000 thoughts that are going to happen. That at the end of the day, you've planted some kind of garden. At the end of the day, consciously or unconsciously, you have made some kind of decision on the type of garden that you will have planted. Now, if you spent the day in anger, then you've planted an angry garden. And the thing about the garden is that it's going to harvest. There's no option on the harvest. The harvest is coming. And so what we do with church is that we want you to be intentional about how you're thinking. One, just be mindful of the fact that you're going to think. And then once you know that you're going to think, get ahead of it. What do I want to think? What kind of garden do I want to plant? And that's why I think when he said that, if you don't put useful seeds in it, and many of us do not, there are plenty of people who don't get that how their thoughts create their world, so they think that their thoughts don't create their world.
Right.
And so they can't wrap their mind around that concept because they can't
They
see
think
how
that they're just reacting to the way things are.
Right, exactly. Right. Not knowing that they're a participant in how things are the way that they are. And so if you don't consciously choose the seeds that get planted, then you unconsciously choose the seeds get planted, but you choose nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that's good. And you had something really, really cool in the movie, and it was one of the. It ended up being kind of humorous, but there's a lot of truth to it. You were talking about commercials, and you said, advertisers, they spend all this money to get down to your subconscious mind. Why not be proactive and get to that subconscious mind yourself with the message that you want?
One of my favorite movies is Inception. I love Inception. Now, and I love it for a few reasons. One, because if I had done the movie, it would have been a documentary. But so kudos to Christopher Nolan for figuring out a pictorial representation of what it means to introduce an idea to the mind. But the beautiful part of the film is that if you can get the mind to accept an idea, it will literally reorder itself to make that idea true. And if it can survive the onslaught of thoughts that are opposed to it, then once it's planted, then you're operating on it. And advertisers know this. They know that if I can convince you that you don't just have a headache, you have an Excedrin headache.
That's right.
Right? If I can convince you that, you don't want you don't want just to take a bath. You want Calgon to take you away. If I can tap into the feeling that you have and convince you that my product is going to give you that feeling, then when it comes time for you to make that decision, you're going to make that decision.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot. The mind is receptive to suggestion, just naturally so. And whatever you suggest to it over and over and over again, it eventually is going to accept. A friend of mine used this. So to know her today, she looks like a slender person.
Mm-hmm.
I knew her when she was in her 20s, and she was, as we say in the community, thick.
I like that.
and so what she did was she drew a picture of herself, slender, and she put her face on it and then put it on her door as she was walking out the door to her home. And just the suggestion of that image to herself, once her mind accepted it, then she began to behave from it. And that sounds fantastical to someone who doesn't understand how the mind works. But when you get that the mind is so malleable, it's not fixed, and that with effort you can change your mind and change it at depth.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of brings us to the next part of this section that, and I think it really hits on that. It says, men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. Their whims, fancies, and ambitions are thwarted at every step, but their inmost thoughts and desires are fed with their own food, be it foul or clean. And he goes on, he says, not what he wishes or prays for does a man get, but that which he justly earns. His wishes and prayers are only gratified and answered when they harmonize with his thoughts and actions.
Yes. So now we have taught this in New Thought for a while, which is that behavior is compulsive. And what we mean by that is that you are never honestly making decisions in the moment. What is happening is that you're seeing a range of options based on the level of your thinking. So I say it this way. Me looking at my finances versus Oprah looking at my finances, we're going to come up with two different conclusions. It's just,
Yeah.
There are opportunities that I would say that she might see that I may never see because of the development or the abundance consciousness that she has cultivated. It's the same neutral set of facts. So the thing is that if you don't do the work to introduce the kind of thinking that supports the type of lifestyle that you want, then literally it's just like you're wishing upon a star.
Yeah.
But if you commit to introducing the thoughts into your mind that support what you really want in life, then nothing shall be impossible for you.
Yeah.
Not one thing shall be impossible for you. And here's the thing, it takes work. So something that I made the decision of, and it's made a difference even immediately, but I'm excited to see where I'll be, 10 years from now, 5 years, even a year from now, is that growing up, I always carry the label smart. And it was something that, you end up being the straight A student. So, she's smart. She's really intelligent. She's articulate. And the challenge with carrying that label is that my identity was wrapped up in that. And that meant that if I ever encountered anything that I didn't immediately understand and couldn't figure out within a certain time range, then my ego was fragile. And so either I just didn't go in that direction, right? Or I stuck with it long enough to figure it out. But what I've learned to do is to really see myself as a learner. And if I'm a learner, I can learn anything. And and that thought has shifted everything. It is, for a few reasons, it is very, I can't think of the word, but it makes you very vulnerable to put down thoughts that no longer serve you. Because you have to essentially say, I was wrong to think that way. And many of us are not willing to label ourselves wrong. So rather than let go of thought models that don't support how we want to be, even now, not the future, even now, we hold on to them because we're married to them and they're so intertwined with our ego, with our self-identity. You have to do the work to think the right thoughts. And you have to be willing to put yourself through it doesn't have to be painful, but there does have to be this surrender where you let go of what thought was true to think a better thought. And I hope that wasn't too convoluted.
No.
I hope that comes across.
Well, and to not guilt yourself about it either, I think is important.
I think to not guilt yourself, but we're so busy protecting who we are that we're afraid to let down the mask and say, I don't know, I need help. And we'll suffer and go without and forego growth and development in exchange for holding on to a model that no longer works.
Yeah.
And everything in the universe needs a tune-up. I mean, you can't drive your car for any length of time without at some point stopping and get a tune-up.
Right.
So your mind at some point needs a tune-up. And unless you have figured out how not to have desire, and there's no such thing, unless, then you're going to need to learn how to think new thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think people are not willing to hold themselves accountable, because that's really what that speaks to when he says wishes and prayers are only gratified and answered when they harmonize with his thoughts and actions, that you really got to get in the mirror and get accountable to yourself. Am I thinking the right thoughts? And you don't have to worry. You can look at the fruit in your life. If there's no fruit, the answer is no.
Yeah.
It's kind of bottom line there.
Well, it makes me think of the old saying of, I pray not to change God's mind, but to change me. And so it's kind of the same sort of thing. If I pray and I have no intention of changing myself or changing my mind, it's not really going to be that helpful for me.
He says this a little bit later. He says, men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves.
That's right.
They therefore remain bound. And that's just it. It's like, I want to be different, but I'm unwilling to change.
Right.
I want things to be different. So
I just want it to be done for me. Right.
Right. Yes. Could you please give me the spirituality that's like just that water? Can I have the one that's just that water? There's not
exactly.
There's not the mix in some right thought with some right feelings, with some right words, some right actions, and some right reactions. There's no quick grits.
There's no quick grits version.
No. This is not a microwave thing. It is painstaking work. And let me tell you something. The reason I'm saying painstaking, but that doesn't mean hard.
Right.
It means that it takes time, and you got to stick with it until it works.
Right.
And
there's a certain reason why what we're trying to achieve or to have is not in our lives yet.
Right. Because we have to become the people who can have it.
Right.
And if we were already those people, we would already have it. We already have what we have become.
Yes.
We got that. We've got to become the next level to get whatever is at that next level. But I was going to say something about the changing, because I had a conversation with a member, and we were talking about tithing. And I was sharing with this member that with tithing, we have to remember to teach people to be cheerful givers, because if they give in a burdened way or out of a sense of obligation or begrudgingly, then they basically taint their gift, right? It's the seed is sown, but it's sown in pain, and so the results that come back mixed in with that. And I was saying that one of the things that I realized is that when you give your time, that it's easy to get the benefit of the joy. So when you interviewed me and I got an opportunity to possibly contribute to the film, and then seeing the results of the film and how good it looks and how just having a sense of like the lives that it's going to change, and just really feeling good about it. I had such a good feeling in my heart, this is a blessing to like be able to serve in this way, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this project. We don't always get that opportunity when we're giving money. We've got to consciously drum up that energy and know how to do that. So I'm sharing this with her, and this is a person who's had difficulty tithing, and so she's saying, yeah, but that's hard when you're stretched so thin, and you're already giving a whole lot, and and it's all these reasons. And it was like, what, sometimes we're so married to the way that we are that we're unwilling to even entertain who we have to become in order to be something different. And I could hear all of the resistance to shift the way that you give mentally, shift the way that you give. And it's like you want the circumstance to change outwardly, but you don't want to change inwardly. And it just doesn't work the other way around. And so when I read that sentence, I immediately thought of that conversation, that people are so anxious to change what their outer conditions look like, but they're unwilling to give up the beliefs that are supporting the way things look right now.
Well,
that was a long-winded way to say, open up your heart and change.
One of my favorites of all time is Zig Ziglar, and he always had a way of saying things. But he would say, it's kind of like the student going to the teacher and saying, "Come on, teacher, give me a good grade, and I promise I'll study next time." Or the farmer going to God and saying, "Come on, God, just give me a crop, and I promise I'll plant next time." Or somebody looking at the stove.
Oh, good. That's it.
Or they go to the stove and they say, "Come on, stove, give me some fire. I promise I'm going to put some wood in tomorrow."
That's exactly it. And it's that we want the results, but we don't want to do the work to plant
to get
the
those
right
results.
seed.
That's right. That's right.
That we have to remember that we're always at cause, and if we're not, we're always at cause. We're always setting causes in motion, and if there is an effect that we no longer want, then we must choose not to put that cause forward. That and that means that we've got to get real with ourselves about that. That the next sentence to that, he says, "The man who does not shrink from self-crucifixion can never fail to accomplish the object upon which his heart is set." And that self-crucifixion is that you've got to be willing to drop what you think today in order to think better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And to not be so mad. That's why I had to really let go of the label smart and pick up the label learner, because being smart was keeping me locked in.
Yeah. It's because it's like, if you're smart, then you already know what you need to know.
Exactly.
Instead of being a learner where you can grow and you can expand or whatever.
Exactly. And so it's really just, and I don't know if anybody else experienced that. I think, maybe my life would have been a little bit different if I hadn't been such a great student, because I'd never had to learn as a child the value of effort. And that effort is what counts. And it really is the non-cognitive skills that make you a success, meaning being able to get back up after you've been knocked down, being able to, creatively go for something if it doesn't come to you the first time. So many things came so easily that I thought all of life would be that way. And so I never learned to value effort. And it has taken me all the way to 40-something.
Not you.
No, I'm forever young. It has taken me all these years to realize how much holding on to the label smart was my way of being unwilling to improve myself. But I wanted different circumstances.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. We'll move forward a little bit because we talked about this in the film a little bit. Blessedness versus wretchedness. And he says, blessedness, not material possessions, is the measure of right thought. Wretchedness, not lack of material possessions, is the measure of wrong thought. A man may be cursed and rich. He may be blessed and poor. Blessedness and riches are only joined together when the riches are rightly and wisely used, and the poor man only descends into wretchedness when he regards his lot as a burden unjustly imposed. Because I think a lot of times, people get into this teaching and there's this tendency to think about, in terms of finances, and we think, oh, well, I'm not blessed because I haven't gotten to this certain level of finances. But he's really going against that here, and I think there's an important message to this.
Yes, I mean, first of all, there's so much to unpack from that. People really need to get that the seed of wealth is helpfulness. So when it goes back up at the top and he says, a man's mind may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. If you're going to intelligently cultivate for wealth, then the seed that you need to plant is helpfulness. And this part I'm borrowing from T. Harv Eker, so I don't want to make this as if it's my own thought. But he said it, and I thought he expressed it in a way that was, it landed. Which is that the only way that you're ever going to get money is that it's going to come from people.
Yeah.
And the only way that people are going to give you money is if you do something helpful for them. If you are not, now, sometimes the helpfulness might be I make a gift to you because it makes me feel good. So you making a gift to me helps me feel philanthropic, brings that joy to me. That may be one possibility. But that's not going to be how you're going to get the majority of your cash.
Yeah.
Not if you want a lot of it. And it's finding out then what gifts, talents, and skills do I have that are going to help people do what they want to do better than what they already know how to do.
Yeah.
And whether that's managing their money, whether that is supporting them through being an attorney, or whether that's being a counselor to them, or whether that's babysitting their kids. Parents don't just go give money to any teenager. They give money to the teenagers that are helping them babysit their children. And if there's a teenager that they see in the neighborhood that's not babysitting their child, there's no reason to give them any money. So it's to realize that the seed of wealth is helpfulness. And sometimes when we see people who have money who are what we would say corrupt, right? Or not a good person. One is not to assume that we know the totality of their character. We never see in totality. We always see in part. But it's also to realize that the seed of wealth doesn't change. It doesn't change according to the economy. The seed of wealth is helpfulness. The people who had the most money during the economic downturn were the ones who were the most helpful. The ones who didn't get laid off were the ones who were the most helpful. And that feels cold, but the universe can only multiply based on the seed that you bring it. It cannot course correct for you. It cannot say, oh my goodness, you need apples, but you gave me an orange seed. Let me see if I can do a hybrid. If you needed oranges, you needed to plant orange seeds. And if you need apples, you need to plant apple seeds. And if you need money, you need to plant seeds of helpfulness.
Yeah.
And so you can look at this even in a job setting that, companies, when they incent, the way that they will pay you more money and they incentivize you is that if you go and get additional education, that's worthy of a bump in salary. If you go and get this certification and that certification, because what you're doing is you're making yourself more and more valuable or more and more helpful to your employer. And so we have to think about that those that are helpful are the ones that inherit wealth. And so it has nothing to do with being a good person. You must be good for its own reward.
Yes.
And not because you think that it's going to bring you money.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People, there are different areas of life, and so, like you said, the rich man can be rich, financially, but poor in spirit, and vice versa.
Exactly.
And so we have different areas, and what we're trying to get to is to be a full and complete richness of character and finances, to where we are.
And
Yeah.
Sometimes it may be, I'm thinking of because I speak to spiritual entrepreneurs. Sometimes it may be talking differently about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
Meaning that you may be doing something that's helpful, but you don't know how to phrase it so that you communicate the help that it's providing. So you could be serving more people, but you're not because what you're doing is not helpful, but because you don't know how to scale up. You get what I'm saying? Like that it's realizing that, because someone may be saying, no, I'm doing something helpful. Yeah, but do the people that you serve know that it's helpful?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, if you had asked, I think it was Henry Ford that said, if I'd asked people what they needed, they would have said faster horses.
Right.
So sometimes you're coming with something that's helpful, but you need the language, the skill to communicate why what you're offering is helpful.
Right.
So I want to make sure I clarify that. But for sure, the key to wealth, the seed to wealth for the garden that you're planting is helpfulness. And that has nothing to do with being a good person. You should be a good person just because you should be a good person, because you don't want that drama in your life. And the last thing you want is a whole lot of money and be a nasty person and have to spend all your money on health because you're so rotten inside.
That's right.
I don't want to make all the money and then spend it back because I'm such a jerk. That doesn't work at all.
Spend all my money on lawsuits.
Right, exactly. I got it, but I'm in court all day. No, that doesn't work. No.
Well, we're almost out of time. Do you have anything?
Oh no, are you serious? Okay.
Well, my little boy just woke up, so I'm gonna have to go. But I'll tell you what. Do you have anything you want to add about the book or the film? Or I know you got a new book that you just finished releasing.
I wish I had a copy here.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called The Money Poems, and the Money Poems is really about adjusting your mindset for wealth, and it's doing the work that we just talked about, which is what are the thoughts that I need to think that condition my mind for wealth. And it's a 49-day system where you literally work with 7 different poems, one for each day of the week, to cultivate the mindset that welcomes wealth. And I concentrated that way because so many programs give you all of the steps. You need to set aside 3 to 6 months savings. You need to, get your retirement in order. You need to put your estate plans in order. And the thing is that you can do all of that. And if you don't get your mind right, you will invite the circumstances that sap all of that money out of your experience. And so it's not about how much money you have. It's about the mindset that you have. And it's about the mindset that invites wealth into your experience. And so the Money Poems is for anyone who wants true wealth in their lives and wants a better relationship with money.
That's awesome. Well, we'll post a link for that on this video. And we appreciate you joining us, and people can see more of you in the movie, and they can also find you online. And so we thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
We hope you all have enjoyed the show. If you want to, you can go to our website, thinkethmovie.com. We got all kinds of really cool stuff there. You can actually click on the link. You can read the book from right there. You can see some of the screenings that we have going on around the country. And if you got a church or a center and you'd be interested in hosting your own screening, you can find information and email us from right there, and we'll get you all hooked up, everything that you need to get going. And anyway, we appreciate y'all joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on iThinketh.
As you think, so you will become.
Why? Why? Always me. Why?
But you notice it all begins with thought. James Allen was one of the first to do that, and he did it so crystal clear that it's still relevant today.
As a Man Thinketh, as his most popular book, was very widely read, very widely quoted, Its ideas were very widely adopted. It influenced a whole generation of self-help writers.
How is it that you have no wife, no job, but you still don't have time to look over a freaking letter and sign it?
What a man thinketh, or what a woman thinketh in their heart, has a tendency to come into their life. So the law doesn't discriminate between, I'm very, very, very afraid of this, or I'm very, very available to this.
Do you want more? I love that book. James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, is wonderful. Thoughts held in mind reproduce after their own kind. So when you hold something in mind and you let it move down into your heart and your feeling nature, you become extremely powerful.
A man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of his soul, the director of his life.